And all right, we'll go 3, 2, and 1. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
Sean. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of random, what do we call it? Random flights of persuasion.
Yep.
We're going to be talking about some takeaway lessons you've got. We're going to talk some visualization, reframing, packaging, all sorts of cool stuff.
All kinds of good stuff. Yeah. So
studio setup, all that good stuff, man.
It's just going to be a little of this, a little of that.
There you go.
And if you don't,
and speaking of which,
we're going to talk.
Yeah, we're going to give you some hints on talking about reframing, hints on setting up your background to look more professional. And as you noticed, Sean's got a little green going back there.
Yeah.
Should have had it. He should have had the green lights going for our last guest with the lip cover and everything, but it's okay.
Sorry, Patrick.
Not to make he's over. Of course, he's not in Ireland or anything, but
no, he was in France.
Yeah,
I mean that's an impressive guest we had.
Badass.
Yeah.
So
yeah, cool. So if you did not hear that episode, it was all about neuroscience and using fear as fuel. Man, that was a great episode. Definitely gonna have to do a follow-up episode on that. Yeah, really good stuff for sure. We'll just have to catch him when he's in Boston instead of France, so we can get the time right. So
he's that'll be episode 186.
Yes.
So if you're listening, cool. But on this one, we're going to be talking about, it's just us. We're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff related to persuasion. But first, we got some drinks to take care of.
We do, man. I tell you, I got out to the grocery store, and the mask mandate's been lifted here in Texas, so went in there, mask free. This is not an original Craft Beer Club beer, but
okay. I'll still keep our logo up.
After going to do my national tour of craft beer clubs, I decided to do some locals and just go down to the grocery store, pick some stuff because I kind of went through the case pretty quick on the last one. But I saw this. It's not a craft brew and it's not local, but I couldn't resist it when I saw it. So it is the Guinness Nitro Cold Brew Coffee.
Oh, yeah.
So it's basically a hard coffee. So it's not very strong, which is fine because I'm coming down off of 12%. So it's fine. This is only like 4% alcohol, so it's barely alcohol at all. But it's beer with coffee and other natural coffee flavors. And it's got the little...
That sounds really good.
It's got the nitro cartridge in it.
Yep.
So I got to... Hold on. Got to do this.
Oh, sounds like that one got a shake.
That one a little too warm, so it's like pouring over my desk right now. So that's fine. I'll let it make glass here. All over my jeans too, but hey, that's what
that sounds. You know what? That sounds really tasty right now. A little coffee beverage there.
Yeah, it's
a touch of alcohol.
All right, I gotta take a pause because I'm gonna have to.
Got a mess to clean up.
Yeah, let's start talking about yours.
All right. So on this episode, I have a Smithwick's Red Ale. Smithwick's, and I think I've had a Smithwick's on before. It's an Ireland Irish Red Ale. I think Sean, have I had I think one of us have had the Smithwick's on, haven't we?
That sounds familiar. Yeah. I don't know.
So I was
the bottle doesn't look familiar, but the name sounds familiar.
I had this in the fridge. I bought this last week because I thought we were going to do a second episode last week, and we had our guest. We actually cut that into a 2-part episode. So I picked this one up last week because it was the week of St. Patty's, and so anyway, we didn't get a chance to run it, so I'm having it this week. 4.5% ABV. With an aroma that is sweet with malty caramel notes, very clean to the taste with great hop flavors, medium bodied and amber red ale. So
I like red ales.
I do too.
Most of the time.
It's got a beautiful, but it's hard to see.
It's kind of a dark red, yeah.
It is. There's not enough light coming in, but it's actually lighter than what it shows on the camera there.
All right.
Did you get everything cleaned up there?
I did.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's good. All right.
So this tastes exactly the way I would want when you pull this off the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly the way I'd want it to taste. Like it tastes like cold brew with a little bit of like that maltiness from beer. So it actually tastes more like cold brew than it does beer.
Yeah.
Just with that little bit of fizz and head to it. So, yeah, it's really good. You could almost, I was just thinking you could almost drink this over ice. Like it's that close to cold brew that you could probably pour it over ice or a frosted glass or something like that.
What did you say the alcohol content was?
It's only 4%.
Okay.
So like, it's not an alcoholic beer at that point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's good. I'd give this I give it a 4.25.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't go any higher because it's not really like a beer. It's
yeah. You could get away with drinking this like around lunchtime
or first thing in the morning, whichever.
First thing, yeah, exactly.
Whichever.
Why not?
I think you would have a little beer on your breath, so probably not. I mean, if you work virtually, who cares, right? You can't. Right. Luckily, Zoom has no smell. Quite lucky, probably for all of us this last year, that Zoom has no smell feature. So
absolutely.
So
I was this close to bringing on a bourbon that I picked up today, but I figured you didn't have a bourbon ready to go, so I'm holding this one off.
No, but anytime, yeah. If you want to do that next week, we'll jump into that. I'll go find a bourbon.
Yeah. This one's a new one, so I'm going to save it. Well, I'll save a little bit of it. I'll save enough of it.
Save one glass.
It's a birthday week, man. We're both celebrating birthdays this week, so I gotta tap into a little bit of that. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. Should I show?
By the way, I got to say, you had one of the most creative looking cakes I've ever seen.
I was gonna pull that up on the screen share for those who are watching on video. If I can find it.
I've seen a lot of cake designs, and but yours tops the cake. Here's my
takes the cake, right?
Takes the cake. That was really good. So those, I'm assuming those were. I know the bucket was cake, but those are real. Jack Daniel.
Yeah. So let me share my screen real quick. Share. Which of your 14 screens do you want to share? This one.
So if you're not on YouTube's, then forget about it.
I think you have to allow it.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Look at that bad boy.
So let me blow it up a little bit.
Zoom that bad boy in. So are those ice cubes? Is that icing or something? Or
the ice cubes are plastic. They're not real ice cubes. Okay. The shot glasses are also real shot glasses. So that was handy. And then the Jack Daniels bottles are real Jack Daniels bottles.
Okay.
And then the rest is cake. Like it's icing, the fondant, all that stuff. So yeah, pretty cool. And it's pretty big. Like, I think there's another picture of it somewhere.
There's nothing left of it now, I'm sure.
Yeah. So there's some size there for.
There's a few bottles are missing there at the top.
So
seems like it.
Yeah. So the cake will be almost gone tonight. But yeah, it's really good. And yeah, somebody local here that Tamara met recently, she makes cakes, and I was like, that's impressive. I feel like I've got to really step up my game for her birthday coming up next month. Because one of the other things we did, which, did you give your score, and then we'll jump into the topics?
Oh yeah. So I've had this one before. I don't even remember what I gave it, but I'm guessing. I mean, I've liked this one. So I'm probably. I would be crazy if I did not before, if we had this before and I did not give it at least a 4, above a 4 rating. So I'm going to give it a 4.3.
Okay.
4.3.
Very good.
There we go.
Very good. So yeah, two good things here. But yeah, I love that. I like this idea of Guinness Nitro Cold Brew, man. That's some good stuff.
Yes.
Especially, it's just
Put it
good.
out on my list.
Yeah, I don't know if I should be drinking it at 5 o'clock at night, but we'll find out. Because like it's mostly coffee. It's pretty good. So yeah, this has been a birthday week. We were saying it's been a birthday week. My birthday was Wednesday. The 24th. Yours is when?
Today,
man.
Today.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, man.
I didn't realize we were that close. Man, it's amazing.
Yeah, a lot. It's crazy. A lot of March birthdays.
I know. A lot of my friends. I've got like 3 people on my team at work that are March, and they're like everywhere. So, well, happy birthday. So, are you 49 or 50?
So I'm 48.
Oh,
now here's a little reframing.
Young pup.
Here's a little reframing. I actually woke up this morning literally thinking in my head that I was 49 years old, because at some point in your life, you just start to
forget
and not even think about like how old you are, and just try to like, I at least I do. I try not to dwell on that.
So when did you graduate high school?
92. 92.
Okay. Yeah. You are young. So you were old in your class then.
Yeah, I got unfortunately I got held back a year when I was in grade school. So
that explains a lot.
It does explain a lot. But
because I graduated in 89 and I'm 50 this year. So
okay.
Yeah. I think I'd flunked out of UGA by 92. So
yeah.
So into the military in 92. So yeah.
You didn't. So let's reframe this. You didn't just flunk out. You decided that there were other avenues to pursue.
No, I flunked out.
You flunked out.
There is no way around it, man. I think on my transcript it says academically dismissed.
Well, I have to say, it's pretty. I'm sure it's pretty easy to flunk out at UGA, considering that town. I mean, that town is like a party town. If you've never, I think it was rated in.
I didn't party that. It wasn't. I was working 3 jobs to pay my way through school.
Okay,
like I had to pay it myself because we just didn't have student loans and other stuff. But, and that in algebra, like I just couldn't. Could not make it past.
I was trying to help you out there.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I love it because now, I work. I run a team. Mm-hmm. They all have college degrees. A couple of them have master's degrees. I think it's just, I love it. I think it's awesome. So
it's like it's like writing a book when, and getting a best-selling, being a best-selling author and not majoring in, with all these other people who are writing books or dissertations and things like that with their MBAs and everything, and never seeing a bestsellers list. That's
Well, I figure I'm qualified. Who was it that said? Is one of I think it might have been. I can't remember who it was. There's some author that said you should never write a book before you're 50. So I think I'm now qualified to write a book.
You have enough experience in your life.
Yeah,
at this point,
I feel good about it now. So, other than like, I know you've written some niche books and things like that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to write like this life book.
Oh yeah.
I feel like, these people that are writing them at 25, their memoir, I'm like, a little early.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I know you've done a lot, but still a little bit early.
Give it some time.
Yeah.
Let's give it some time.
Let's wait till that first big failure and then come back after that. So anyway.
So the reframing, what I was saying earlier is I woke up this morning thinking I was 49. Mm-hmm. Not even like really like rarely thinking about how old I am. So I think I'm 49, and my wife reminds me I'm only 48. So I'm like, cool. So I've gone throughout the day feeling really good.
Yeah, you got a whole nother year.
48.
Got a whole nother year to do something with. That's awesome. I thought you were going to say you walked up to the mirror and you realized there's no way I'm 49. This is just too good. But that's how I felt when I looked in the mirror and said 50. I was like, 50 is the new 30.
Absolutely. So, it's all a number, man. It's all.
It is. I'm shooting for 125 anyway, so I'm not even.
That's right.
I'm not even halfway there. I'm like a third, whatever that is.
Well, look at our previous guest, man. He's probably as old as we are, if not older. And look at all that he's done.
Amazing. I mean,
Incredible.
Yeah. Let's talk about some persuasion things that just kind of showed up in life this week.
Sure.
We do these every once in a while. We call them flights of persuasion in honor of our beverages here.
Yep.
So part of my birthday extravaganza week, Tamara took me out to Fredericksburg, I was going to say Tennessee, Texas, which is about an hour and a half west of Austin. West.
I remember you talking about this place before.
Yeah, so they do a lot of wine. It's a big wine country, things like that.
Yep.
But she found this little company that basically does a scavenger hunt.
Okay.
That turns into a picnic in the park in the middle of Fredericksburg, Texas, which is kind of a nice little tourist town. If you're from Georgia, it's kind of like a Helen, Georgia. You know, it's not as touristy as like gimmicky as like a Pigeon Forge or a Branson or anything like that. Sure. It's more of like it is a German town. It's not as over the top as Helen, Georgia is. But a lot of it is like literally it was settled by Germans and things like that a long time ago. That first came out here. So definitely got those types of things, but probably 6 or 7 blocks on Main Street, just packed with stores and restaurants and everything else. So she bought this thing and it's from amazingco.me was the name of the company. And what they do is in different towns across the country, you can do these little adventures, these little, they call them a mystery lunch. And basically what happens is you get these clues and you have to solve the clue. And then you go to the first place and you pick up an item for your picnic. And then you solve another, you hit the app and it asks you the next question. And they're like word puzzle type things. So you have to sit there and figure them out to know where to go next. Right. So it creates like a little bit of a walking tour experience. You get a little bit of, back and forth with your partner, whoever you're with, your spouse. So it's a great way to start arguments while you're on an important day. But these cool little word puzzles, and you solve those, and then it tells you the next place to go. So like, for instance, we started out, we left the house and solved the first one so you know where to go. And we picked up like a couple of coffees and some salads. We put those they give you a little box, and we had a little picnic basket that Tamara bought. And then you sit down, we sat down at the little counter there in the shop and solved the next one. So it was a chocolate place where you pick up, these box of chocolates. And then, so you're in so what's cool about it is instead of just like going to a town and picking one place to do a nice lunch or a nice dinner, and you're at one place. Yeah. This gives you the experience of walking around 2 or 3 blocks of the town and picking up different things as you go. And they had on the app, they had like points of interest. Hey, on your way to this place, check out this, and this. And I thought it was just a really cool, like experiential marketing type thing. It gets you a little bit more involved. You're a little bit more aware of what's going on around you. You're noticing more things because you're looking for things. You probably would hit more stores and restaurants than you would if you just went there for, like I said, one thing. And it got me to wondering, like, how could you apply that to like online worlds? Like, for instance, if you did a virtual summit, could you create a little virtual scavenger hunt online where people could go pick up gifts and prizes, from each of the speakers or something like that? So how can you turn anything, just what would normally be a picnic lunch into a actual experience with some gamification in it? We talked about gamification, a few weeks back. Yes. How could you incorporate all that stuff into it? So I just thought it was really cool. I mean, it was really fun. We saw some stuff. We got to taste and experience a little taste of different restaurants. So now we know, hey, we want to go back to that one and this one and this one. Sure. That one, not so much, or whatever. So you have a little bit more feeling, and it's more likely to bring you back to that town. So I think it's a great service from this company. And I think if you really thought about it, you could sit down and figure out ways to create those types of experiences, either inside your own business, whether it's from product to product, or even team up with other businesses and do that for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I always find it interesting. People love to be involved in the process of like you talk about gamification, experience and the involvement, getting people involved in a certain level.
Mhm.
To some degree, people like to be obviously entertained, but they also like part of entertainment is sometimes involvement,
Yeah.
in that process and being part of being part of the experience and instead of just letting all of the experience happen to you.
I think what would have been even like how they could have taken it up a notch, because most of these restaurants, they know they're involved in this program, right?
Yeah.
So what they didn't do a good job of was like taking advantage of like an Instagram moment. They didn't have a place where you could kind of stand with their sign in the background and whatever
Right.
you picked up and things like that. So I think there's even more opportunity for those businesses that are involved, because we took pictures at every place. We posted them on Instagram, things like that. But we weren't sure like who to tag, or you had to search for them or things like that. So I think they could have made it a little easier for us to tag them,
Mm-hmm.
the individual places that we went to, things like that, where you could take even more advantage of it.
Sure.
Especially for like milestone, because typically when you buy a package like that, it's going to be some type of milestone event, a birthday,
Sure.
an anniversary, or something like that. I thought AmazingCo.me, which was the company that put it all together and had the app for it, did a really good job. I think, and they probably enrolled these people into the conversation, things like that. But I think they could coach those people a little bit better.
Sure.
On, hey, when they come in, make a big deal, like get an Instagram picture with them, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I mean, it was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think about there's a restaurant that I think it's up in Indianapolis, and you're seeing a trend on more restaurants like this. But I remember a few years ago, it was part of a corporate event and I was involved in it, but it was you went to the restaurant, and what they do is they break you up into teams. And so everybody, whether it's with a company or with you bring your whole family. And so like they put each team at like a table. And so they basically what they're doing is letting you prepare a meal, right? So instead of you going in there and sitting down and being, basically ordering off the menu and somebody bringing you something, they bring you a lot of the ingredients. And part of your experience there is having like a cook-off and a competition between other family members or other people within your organization or company. So obviously they attract a lot of, corporate entities there, but it's a lot of fun. It's experience. I mean, your first thought is like, if I'm going out to eat, I want to be served, and I want like I want somebody else to prepare the meal, but that's not always the case, because if you're, sometimes you want to go out, and if you're dealing with a lot of good ingredients and somebody's kind of coaching you, obviously, if you have no experience cooking or whatsoever, they're going to kind of coach you along the way. But it's kind of cool though, that concept, and it's pretty popular.
I mean, it ups the experience value, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like that's what this episode is turning into, is just kind of the experience fact, element of really getting people more involved.
Yep.
Instead of just being passive, you actually get to be involved in the process of the event. And
absolutely,
and they probably charge more and do less work at the restaurant. Like
they require. It's funny because they couldn't. This place was packed, so you obviously you have to have reservations. You don't, and they serve a lot of corporate events, so it's high dollar. They don't require as many staff members, obviously, because you're not. I mean, you don't. You're doing a lot of it yourself.
For an extra $25 per person, you can wash dishes together.
Exactly. Isn't that crazy?
See how you work together.
So, but yeah, I mean, do you think about that, from a persuasion and marketing standpoint, especially, I think the younger generation is more in tune with experiences than the older generation. I think like the 50 plus crowd, no offense, Sean, but we're edging on into that demographic. But I think, that demographic tends to, for the most part, we like it, experiences and stuff like that. But for the most part, they want to be like entertained. But I think a lot of younger people want to, be a part of the experience and be involved in the experience to some degree.
Man. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm still Gen X, man. Don't put me in the boomer crowd quite yet.
I'm not, man. Like I said, we're teetering on the edge, so we can.
I mean, I will take discounts, for being over 50.
Exactly.
I can double up on my veteran and my 50 plus discount. That'd be awesome.
That's right.
So, but it's got to be one or the other usually. So, well, another thing, switching gears here. So this week I took part in a challenge. So, every couple of years, kind of on the internet, especially in the internet marketing world, kind of things rotate and new ideas come up. And what's really been hot the last year or two have been this idea of challenges.
Yep.
Where you do a 3 or 5 day challenge. Some as long as 21-day challenges. But the sweet spot seems to be a 5-day challenge. Where you get on, it's live, you're with whoever teaching whatever for an hour a day, usually in a Facebook group or something like that. And so I joined a challenge this week because I wanted to check it out. And it was a challenge to learn how to put on challenges. So from the challenge guy.
Great. Yeah.
So Pedro Adeo, he's done some cool stuff over the last few years, just kind of came out of nowhere. And he did it all through challenges. So now he's, of course, teaching challenges. But, to me, this is basically it's a very much like, if you're familiar with Jeff Walker's product launch.
Yes.
It's similar to that, but it's live. Right. So it's live instead of having the recorded 4 videos and things like that, which I think people really want. Going back to the experience, they want to be involved in the process. They want to make comments during the talk. They want to know, they're just dying to get that shout out when you read their name on the comments or you answer their particular question on the comments.
Right.
We've seen this, it's one thing that makes Peloton work is that every once in a while, maybe you might get a shout out from one of the teachers, even though there's 1 million people on there, your chances are like, you got a better chance of winning the lottery than actually getting a live shout out on Peloton.
Yeah.
But there's the hope there, right? There's the chance there that you might get that and the live interaction and all that kind of stuff. So the challenge is really take advantage of all that live stuff. So I signed up for this one, and this is also kind of just cool from a marketing standpoint. When you sign up, the challenge was free. Some people charge, some people don't. So in this case, he did not charge, but then he offered a VIP package, which I thought was a pretty cool upsell.
Sure.
Where you get a different hour that's with a special guest of some kind, and different big names that he knows and things like that. John Lee Dumas was there.
Cool.
A couple other people were there throughout the week. So you got a Zoom link for the second hour that was just for VIP people. And then they also sent, as part of the VIP package, they also sent a package, which I just got today, even though the challenge is over now. But I haven't even opened this yet. So this is the first time I've opened it. I knew one thing that was in it, but I don't know anything else that's in it. Right. So, one thing that was in it was a book because John Lee Dumas was the co-host. So it was his
He's got a new book out, doesn't he?
Right. Yeah. So that was in there. That was part of the package. I'm sure I would have bought that anyway. So
yeah, I heard his interview on Dan Miller's 48 Days last week about this new book. Sounds really good.
Yeah. So the book is The Common Path to Uncommon Success. So excited to look at that, read through that. Come on, John, you didn't even sign it. Like, what's up with that? No. I wasn't really expecting that. And then there's just a lot of little swag. Like this would have been cool to have earlier on the show because I didn't see anybody using this, but for like Zoom calls, they give you a couple things where you can actually do your,
that's cool.
Insight, thumbs up, heart, those kind of things. That's good. I may knock that off. That's kind of cool. couple stickers here. One of those little pop-it things for your phone, which I will never use, but somebody in my family might. Challenge details. That's good. A little extra.
Sure. Yeah.
So I did sign up like at the last minute, so that's why I didn't get mine as quick. This is kind of cool. Quiet, please. You put it on your door for your office. When you're attending the calls, you don't get interrupted. That's a neat idea. And then some instructions for your backstage VIP experience. So pretty cool little package. I mean, that was probably, even with the book, I mean, that's probably $20 at the most, including fulfillment.
Sure.
You charge $95 because you get the backstage, hour each day. So that's 5 hours there. But that basically liquidated his ad cost.
Oh, easily.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, because he did say, this is interesting, for these challenges, he did a similar challenge in January, and it was $4 per attendee for ad cost. And this time it was $15. It's gone up that much that quick.
Wow.
So, it's getting expensive, but either way, I mean, still he liquidated the cost. There's some affiliate fees and stuff in there too, as well.
Sure.
But it's a pretty cool way. You have a basic challenge and you come up with an upsell for a VIP package. You're going to get 30, I would bet 20-30% of the people to take the VIP if it's got something of value in it. I like that he used the extra hour. It's a low cost thing to do.
Sure. Yep.
The book is some hard value so that people feel like they got something physical.
Yeah.
So it's a good mix of that, something that's going to show up on your doorstep, and then something that's kind of intangible and you can put a higher value on it because it is
absolutely. Yep.
So I thought it was really well done. And just the idea of challenges is really cool. And they're fun. There's high energy. It'd be, we do these live. We don't get a ton of, people in here, but there is something about it. Like every once in a while, somebody pops in and it's kind of fun. But on the challenges, you've gathered a group of people, and there's just a different energy when you're doing it live than when you're trying to do a webinar recording or an evergreen or anything like that.
Right.
I just think it's so much, it comes across so much stronger because it is an experience.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on challenges for the week.
That John Lee Dumas, might have to order a copy of that. I was listening, like I said, I was listening to his interview. It sounds really good, but it's a compilation. I think it's a compilation of a lot of some of the takeaways of people that he's interviewed over the years from his Entrepreneur on Fire podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I would think, I haven't gone through it yet, but my guess is it's similar to the Tools of Titans or those two books that Ferriss put out from his interviews.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff here on identifying your big idea, discover your niche, create your avatar, choose your platform, find your mentor, create a mastermind. So a lot of stuff we talk about is in here. So definitely get that, and we'll go through it together and
sure
bring it to the people here on the podcast.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, we've talked about the trip, we talked about challenges, we've talked about some reframing. I've got backgrounds we can talk about, and then you had something else.
Yep. So I want to mention too the power of upselling and packaging. So this week, so just as an example, a story from selling a sponsorship advertising package for one of my industry specific podcasts that I do on a regular basis. So I had one, I actually finished an agreement this week, sold a sponsorship for a few months there for a few $1,000s.
I thought that was the 8-figure deal you were talking about.
I wish it was the 8-figure. It will turn into an 8-figure. I'm pretty sure it will over time. It's just a matter of time. It's all how you look at it, right?
With the right monetary policies in place, absolutely exactly. Be an 8-figure deal.
Yeah. Cost of inflation, you factor that in a few years, it'll be 8 figures. No, but anyway, so you always got to be thinking how to add value, how to create value out of thin air. I was just thinking about that as you were talking. How do you create value in the minds of your prospects without really sacrificing? The worst thing you could do, the climb to the bottom, is always drop your price, which you never want to do. Right. So always find ways to increase your price and up your value. And so the way you can do that is you got to repackage or reframe.
And without increasing cost of goods.
Without increasing cost of goods. So that's a good point, because when it comes to podcast advertising, it's all digital, right? Or it's all just over the air reading an ad. So for the same cost, so I had a company that was basically, I hate it when they're kind of teetering on the edge or they're thinking it over,
Yeah.
when you present a proposal to them. But one thing I did for this one, because I knew that they were like, I didn't, the last thing you want your a company to do is say, we'll get back with you, right? Because those are like,
Kiss of death.
that's a kiss of death. Once they walk away and they said, we're going to think about it and get back with you, you may never hear back from them again. So what I did in the conversation is added value immediately. And what I did was, one of the podcast proposal package, the sponsorship package, was for one particular platform. So I automatically, because in this particular industry, I have one that's a Cast Polymer Radio and then a Composites Weekly. These are two podcasts, very similar niche industries.
Mm-hmm.
In this company, I realized that what they offered within their products, within some of the products and services they offered, actually served both platforms.
Mm.
So what I automatically did was just to tell them that I'll take that same ad and throw it on the other podcast with some banners and things like that at no additional charge if they would commit right then and there. Right.
The old BOGO. Works every time.
So I said, this is, I'll do it now if you go ahead and agree, right now, because I really need to go ahead and I want to lock this advertising up for this month because we're coming up on April. Yeah. And I need to go ahead and obviously get my sponsorships lined up for the month. So I said, I just need to know something. And if this helps you make that decision right away, I'll go ahead and throw this additional advertising. Now, does that cost me any extra money to add that same advertisement over onto the other podcast as well? No, it's simply just a matter of, taking a lot of the same content and the same banners and the same audio read that I do. That's, and one thing that I'll tell you on podcast advertising and sponsorships, like on this particular one, what I've done is something that I've done that's new, that I've learned from a lot of radio shows and other podcasts, is to have pre-read ad rolls that I've already recorded. So all I have to do, you've seen this little Roadcaster thing. So I've got the buttons. And so I introduce these little live ad rolls, or these, not live, but these pre-read ad reads, introduce those sounds into those buttons. And all I have to do during the podcast is to say, we're going to take a break, come back, and then I push the button, right? Nice. So those, nothing extra, but I simply added that extra ad to the other podcast where I just push a button and just add it into the content. Doesn't cost me any extra time because I've already created the content up front. And so right away, when I threw that in, they were like, so we'll do it, committed. Yeah. So that's just a lesson, you try to create ways of adding value right away into something, because the last thing you want is for somebody to go away. So always be thinking in the back of your mind, if somebody says, I'm going to think about it or make a decision later, always have something prepared, an added value feature, whether it's like, I can give something of value, whether it's a book, whether it's creating an extra course. You see this in a lot of online marketing where it's like, you act right now and I'll throw in this bonus course, right? This bonus, this book, or these extra, bonuses right away if you do it now. But if you wait, you're not going to get them.
Yeah, I think that's so much stronger too than a discount. Like actually the challenge I was going through today, he made an offer, on the final day. Obviously he's going to pitch his course and things like that. So he offered the course, but he did a very smart thing. He said, he talked about this bonus that he had. It was like, where he and his team would personally review a certain worksheet there in the course and give you personalized feedback, on that worksheet, which is one of the key pieces, your niche and some other stuff.
Right.
He said, but that's only good it's only a fast action bonus, and it's only good till midnight tonight. Right. And then, so if you wait till tomorrow, or you think about it over the weekend, or you're trying to get money together over the weekend, you miss it. It's only in the cart till midnight tonight. Because we all know in marketing, most people will wait until the deadline,
right?
Like the regular deadline. So if you can create other deadlines, that have other things that go with them.
Absolutely.
It kind of doubles your closing cart almost, right?
Yep.
Because I remember when I was at Agora and we would do big promotions, we could do a 2-week promotion, we could do a 1-week promotion, we could do a 4-week promotion. And no matter what, the last 24 hours would be 50% of sales, and
Absolutely.
the other time would be the other 50%.
Right.
Like every time, 50% of sales came the last 24 hours. So if you can create some not faults, but like these other incentive points that force a decision, nobody wants to make a decision, right? They want to put it off. They want to think about it, even though they know they're going to do it. They'll wait until they're forced to make a decision. So if you have some really good bonuses, like a free, hey, I'll also put you on this other podcast, for free. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. Because they don't want to miss out on that, right? Now they're missing out instead of just buying something.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
they're thinking I've just totally wasted that opportunity when I could be on two platforms for the price of one. So
and maybe there's 3 people in the room and one's like, well, that's a 50% discount. The other one's like, that's twice as much reach. Fine, whatever. Like
exactly. However you want to. Yeah, exactly.
It satisfies the whole team, the accountant, the sales manager. Like it helps everybody come to an agreement that, hey, this is a good deal. Let's go ahead and do it.
Total win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we had one more thing I think we want to talk about, which is kind of a pet peeve of yours and mine.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we've moved into this world of Zoom meetings and video meetings, StreamYards, Facebook Lives, like all these things. And before I say what I'm going to say, I will say, I understand organic and authentic and all these things are like great. But at the same time, people,
get a life.
Let's just have a heart to heart here. The dirty laundry or even clean laundry on the bed behind you while you're on a call does not look good.
It's just very distracting.
I mean, you're spending, a couple $1,000s or whatever you've spent on branding or on your website or whatever. And then you show up with a closet door, the seam of the closet door going down the middle of your head behind you, the corner of a bed sticking out. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect, but there's some little things you can do. Move a bookshelf. Like people love to see books, I think, behind, especially if you're kind of a thought leader or anything like that. You want to definitely have a bookshelf or so behind you. Some cool knickknacks, maybe that kind of give a little hint at your personality. Like behind me, I've got a giant pencil, right?
Oh yeah.
Because I'm a writer. I've got Spartan medals up there. There's a big keyboard behind. All these things are chosen, one, because I like them and they're in my office anyway. And then books and a recliner where the dog lays, which is kind of cool. Like if you have a dog, people love dogs and stuff. And when the dog wanders in every once in a while, that's fine.
Sure.
The kind of stuff that looks crappy is if your blinds in your window behind you are like they've been torn up by the cat and it looks like you can't afford new blinds. That kind of stuff just doesn't I promise you, people are judging you.
Absolutely.
You can say they shouldn't judge. They should just deal with it. They do.
Every time.
They do.
They'll hone in on the smallest detail.
Yeah.
Even if you think
you've got a story, tell the story.
Yeah. So when I used to do the BIB podcast, and you can still see it, because I got YouTube videos up that a lot of them were product reviews on online marketing and stuff like that were being used. But yeah, I mean, so some of the videos that I would do, and this was at my old office at my old house, and I remember one particular episode where I had taken the closet door off in the background, had painted the door, but had not yet put the door handle on, because you take the door handle off, you paint the door, you put it back on. Sometimes you just you don't do it all at one time. You're like, it
run out of daylight.
Sometimes you do it in stages, right?
Yeah.
So on one particular episode, forgot that I had not put the door handle back on, recorded the video, and sure enough, in the comments on YouTube, people will zero in on that. Like one particular individual said, dude, get a door handle, right?
Yeah. And what And for every person that speaks up, there's, 5 others thinking the same thing, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they're thinking, this guy can't even afford a door handle for his closet, and he's telling me how to run a business.
That's right. That's right. Your credibility for not having a door handle is out the door.
Yeah. And it's like,
no pun intended.
Like I understand it's not necessarily fair or right or, whatever you want to call it. But the fact is that's just human nature.
Mm-hmm. And
people are going to start like, if you look like you're in a rundown apartment and you're trying to pitch, it also depends kind of your niche you're in. You need to be aware of that. And you're trying to pitch a certain product or a certain level of service, you need to make sure that it kind of looks like,
well, it's like an old sales manager told me years ago, perception's reality. And so it doesn't matter what the reality is, people's perception is that reality. They've already formed the reality from the perception that you've given them. Yep. So if you don't create the perception right away, people will, I always think about one of my all-time favorite movies is Cinderella Man. So he's like, the movie about the boxer. I don't know if you ever saw it with Russell Crowe. He's a boxer, and it takes place during the Depression during the 1920s. And so everybody's hurting during the Depression. And his manager, Joe Gould, I remember the guy, he was like, Russell Crowe's like, he's hit some hard times, basically goes up to talk to his manager who lives in this high-rise apartment, right, up in New York, goes to visit him, knocks on the door, and he opens the door, and they have it's a really nice apartment, but when he opens the door, he's like, there's no furniture in there because I've sold all their furniture. And he's like, I just remember he holds up his fist and he's like, got to keep up appearances, right? Because it's all, a lot of it's perception, and that seems shallow to a degree, but it always reminds me of the fact that people are thinking, they are forming their own perceptions when you present to them, especially in video. When you present to them kind of like a crummy looking background, they've already formed their impression of you right away. So, yeah.
And like I said, you're not going to fight this human instinct. So you might as well embrace it and understand it and use it. So for instance, they say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but that's how people buy books.
Every time.
Same with beer.
Books have you bought? I mean, I could raise my hand. I've bought hundreds of books based on just the cover alone without reading one review.
Yeah.
Or
the title and the cover, is the cover well done, especially like ebooks and digital books. Mm-hmm. But we do the same thing with coffee. Not coffee, but beer, wine, craft beer, especially, but wine, it's a proven fact, and you can look up wine marketing, right? Like the label makes a difference, right? It just does. Like people want a cool label, they want a cool name, all these things. So you want to create an environment that is persuasive and makes you look good. Right. And, I think you have to know your market, obviously, as well. Like some people would be like, well, you guys are like wearing baseball caps and t-shirts. That's not professional. But we also know we're dealing with a lot of copywriters, internet marketers that this is the way they dress. Yeah. Right. Now, if I was presenting to bankers, I would not dress like this, and I may even change up my background a little bit to be even more neutral. So I have a stand that I got from a photography place that I can put up behind me with a drape, and it can just be solid black with so there's you can't judge anything. Like there's nothing there. It's literally just my chair, which my broad shoulders cover the whole chair. Sure. So it's just like a black backdrop. And so if you're like you say, well, Sean, I've got a small house, or I've got an apartment that I'm in the bedroom, I have to be in there. You're probably not on calls 8 hours a day. But even if you are, you can get one of these little portable stands and just put it right behind your chair inside the video frame. Cause it doesn't have to be, you can kind of see for me to be in the video frame, if you're watching on video, it really doesn't have to be that big. It's not like it's got to be as high as the ceiling, as wide as the room, because the closer it is, the more the background it takes up, right?
Absolutely.
So you can get one of those nice folding screens. You could get a set of drapes on it. Literally, you could build some 2x4s with a curtain rod across it and put a nice drape behind you. Yeah. All you're trying to do is to eliminate it's kind of like removing reasonable doubt. You know, if you were at a court trial, you don't want people to presuppose anything negative based on your background. Now, you could have interesting stuff if you want to go into the, you know, stuff like I've got and Jonathan's got. You got a whiteboard, you got a, you know, an obvious office desk and bookshelves and things like that. Like, you can obviously tell Jonathan's in a workspace compared to at home.
Right.
So, you know,
same is true with audio too. Cause I mean, we use like good microphones and things like that, because I learned a long time ago, like, people judge you like podcast on the quality of your audio, because I've like tuned out to so many, and I know the same with so many other people, as they'll stop listening to podcasts based on the audio quality.
Sure.
People judge you immediately right then and there with video, audio quality. It's all the same.
And I think the same thing on Zoom calls. Like, if you don't have good audio and then people have to strain to listen to you,
right,
and the next person's loud, you know, like, I use the same mic on all my Zoom calls. I just don't have it in front of me. I push it back.
Sure.
Right out of the screen. So it's still up close.
But still, that's not terrible.
I mean, it gives more resonance than if I don't use that.
Yeah.
Like, the sound is noticeably different when I have that on and when I don't have it on.
Right.
So it stays out of view. And, so it's not like I'm trying to do, and I don't use the headphones when I'm doing this. We just do that for feedback when there's multiple people, but you don't really need the headphones necessarily. But a good mic does make a big difference.
Absolutely.
In conference calls and everything else.
Yeah.
And typically the closer you get to the mic, the more like resonance and bass that you get in the call. So if you have especially if you have a high squeaky voice that you don't like, the closer you can get to a good microphone, the better.
Yeah, there's a few people that get away with stuff like that, and you know, I listen to Scott Adams' podcast, and his audio is terrible. He's got an annoying voice, but his content's good. So, not to mention he's like a best-selling author, and he's got a lot of good content that, like, you know, if like his book on Persuasion, and you know, the Win Bigly and all that stuff, like, is so he's overcome a lot to be able to use, like, not using high quality stuff and kind of giving, because you expect good content from him, right?
But how many people is he missing because of that? You know,
exactly.
Growing his list.
Yeah, and there's always some people, like, if you listen to his podcast, there's always people chiming in. Have you thought about adding a mic? And he's like goes, yes, I have, and like, you know, listen, I'm using what I have, and that's fine, and I'm okay with it. So he's like, I mean, he could afford like a sound studio, like, probably worth several hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you know, that's just not what he wants to do. It's not about his lifestyle's about, you know, just getting it out quick and being done with it and putting it out there. So
the thing is, once it's set up though, it's, you know, it doesn't take any more time once it's set up. Right. So it can be worth the hassle to go ahead and do it.
Yep.
I think of it like this. It's like, you're already battling uphill when you meet new people, when when you're in meetings, like, so any type of judgment that you can decrease gives you a chance for them to get to know you better.
Absolutely.
But if you immediately have these red flags and different things that people are going to judge, then it just makes, you're just making your own persuasion and influence harder.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you were on a first date and you forgot to brush your teeth and you had, you know, a Philly cheesesteak for lunch with lots of onions, and you go to pick up your date, like, you're still the same person.
Right.
It doesn't diminish your value as a person, but it doesn't put as good of a first impression as you could on that date. And now you've got to make up for that if you want to stay in that relationship. You know, and you may not get the chance.
Yeah.
Because people got other choices, right?
That's right.
So the more you can do, and again, don't not do something because you're not prepared. We're not going that far, but you can start to work these things in. So, before, 3 weeks ago, I didn't have the lights that I have behind me, but I saw somebody else that had them, and I was like, that's pretty cool. And it kind of cast a different light, and it literally cast a different light. And it again takes out some of the stuff. Because if I like turn these off, let me just. like you can just see, I didn't turn the last one
Yeah.
off because it's further away, but it's just a little more plain. It looks like a
Yeah, it
regular
is.
house, or,
Mhm.
you know, with regular beige walls, and it just loses something. So just little things like that. And these lights were $50 for a set of 4.
Yeah.
You know, so just little
That's a
things
key.
like that can make a big difference.
Changes the whole perception. That color, yeah,
Yeah.
adding that in, it's amazing.
Yeah, it just looks like you thought about it. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, this guy put together, like he cares.
Yeah.
I think that's the message it sends. It's like, oh, they cared enough to like make sure they look presentable.
Mhm.
It's kind of the same thing that, you know, if you were a banker, you know, Wall Street, you know, dealing with people's money, you would wear a suit and a tie, and
Right.
it's kind of a form of respect, right? It's like, hey, I respect you enough that I've got a professional looking background and set.
Yeah.
Even though we're all working from home, we all know it.
Yeah.
But I want to put my
Yeah.
best foot forward. And people subconsciously, I think, even if they don't process all that consciously, subconsciously, I think it puts a lot across.
Yeah, it's funny because whenever I do some podcast coaching from time to time with companies that want to implement podcasting, like when I start laying out like the foundation for their podcast, like, you know, obviously hosting, but when I start getting at equipment, they're like, do I have to buy all that? I'm like, you don't have to, but like you hired me, you're paying me a lot of money to teach you how, but you want to basically you want to go cheap on the equipment. That doesn't make any sense. I mean,
Yeah.
do you understand? I mean, it's like this doesn't add up because you're paying me a lot of money to learn how to do this right, but
Yeah.
you want to kind of go cheap on like how you're doing it. So I'm like, you can, but it's just the quality of your content is, you know, there's so much, like you said, there's so much content that you're battling out there that is out there available to people. If you're not putting it out there, and like you said, Sean, you don't have everything doesn't have to be perfect right from day one, but if you're not working on improving that and getting better, and when people ask questions like, can I go cheap, can I buy like a $30 microphone or use a lapel or something like that, I'm like, you can, but people will judge you, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a
They
lot
will.
of other stuff out there that sounds a lot better. So
Yeah. A couple other tips for video. If you're on video, don't put a window behind you if you can avoid it.
yes,
You know, like especially directly behind you.
yeah,
Um,
like this one over here.
yeah. It can wash you out and turn you into a silhouette, like
That's
you're
right.
on like one of those mystery murder shows or something, like protected witness type shows.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can orient your desk to where the light is coming in,
Yep.
you know, in front of you, it's better.
Mm-hmm.
If not, like I have a window to my side here, and there's like 2 months, 3 months out of the year where the sun just like shines right into my camera. You've seen that a couple times, Jonathan.
Yep.
Looks like a angel is in the room. But so I have a shade that I have to pull down certain times of the year, you know, or blinds that I have to pull down. But you know, if you can, it's great if you can get your desk and put it in front of the window, look out the window so that when you're on, that sunlight comes in this way. I mean, that's great lighting.
Oh yeah.
I have a desk lamp on my desk that I use for lighting. I know you have a lot of overhead lights there in the office. That
I have
give
one
a
of
nice
those.
even light.
You ever seen one of those ring lights? Like
Yeah.
I'm operating, like I can like push a button like right in my. So I've got
Yeah.
the remote right here, and I just push it on, and that's mostly for because I've showed you that other camera angle that I have for doing some of the other podcasts that I do.
Yep.
But,
Yeah, and if your computer, you know, also like I have a different height on I have an adjustable desk. You don't have to go through all this, but it's just little things like this. Like I have an adjustable desk, and I have a different height for when I'm on video conferencing,
right,
than if I'm just typing or working. You know, so that's like this height where my eyes are in line with the little green dot on my MacBook. But if it's a little too high to type, if I was typing, it would be down here.
Sure.
You know, yes, you can adjust the back, but you don't want to be looking up somebody's nose. Like all these things, like it seems like a little much, but once you find your settings, you know, you can just stick with those each time, and you kind of know where you are on the thing. So I also have to be like very aware because I have 3 screens. If I'm looking up on this screen, it looks like I'm looking up in like in the
yeah.
ceiling practically, or
Yeah.
this way.
Yep.
So I have to be careful about that when I'm on video, because it's very noticeable. So just little things like that, be more intentional. But I think the background is the biggest one, because even if you're just like listening on a call, obviously you try to face your desk so that it's away from traffic. I'm lucky, I'm fortunate, I have my own office, all that stuff, and I know some of you don't. You have small apartments, or you're using a guest, a bedroom or anything like that. Just take another look when you're next time you're on video and say, hey, what are other people, if I took an objective look at my background, what are they seeing, and how is that persuading them one way or the other? Because it is.
You're actually you're getting ready to create a studio in your a spare room there too, right?
Yeah. So we've got a guest room that we hardly ever use. So we just sold the bed, and I'm going to put up I'm just going to create a little room in there that's just for, video production, podcast production, things like that. Because I think every podcast now should have video that goes with it.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I know you're big on that, Jonathan. So
yes.
So that's the big things. We talked about experiential marketing. We talked about challenge marketing. We talked about backgrounds. We talked about reframing. There's our flight of persuasion for the day. So I think it's time for dinner.
I think so too. Time to do a little celebration for the weekend. As always, guys, thanks for listening. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms or over at persuasionbythepint.com, and leave us a few reviews, maybe 5 stars, Sean, and greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you guys on the next episode.
See ya.
All right.